Devlet's project has been going for a couple of years now, and it's looking at eventually
Yeah.
developing high-strength steel sections. So over to you, Devlet.
Okay, thank you. And very good morning or good afternoon to you. This is the project. Let me push it down. Development of high strength vanadium microalloyed steel for structural application. We can minimize this. So the objective is to develop high strength structural steels, 350 onward, 350, 410, 450 like that. Niobium has certain disadvantages that we know, that high reheating temperature, high rolling load, accelerated cooling, and microstructural uniformity. Grain size uniformity is a problem. These kind of steels require high strength and high impact toughness down to quite a low temperature for use in high altitude cold terrain. So our plan is to develop vanadium microalloyed steels, primarily relying on nitrogen, vanadium and nitrogen alloying, uh, with varying carbon contents and nitrogen contents and vanadium levels as well, and trying to reach the desired properties as per these grade requirements. Industrial requirements from Steel Authority of India Limited, who were the collaborator for this project. These are the typical composition range developed for these grades, and these are the property requirements, corresponding property requirement. Now, Steel Authority hardly use any vanadium in their existing 250 or E310 grade. Occasionally, mild addition of vanadium is done in medium to heavy structural sections. So we plan to vary the vanadium level and nitrogen level. We plan to develop continuously roll, two thickness, 12 mm lower side thickness and 25 mm relatively higher side thickness. Accordingly, FRT and cooling rate will vary naturally. We are not imposing any forced cooling or we are relying on rolling followed by the natural cooling, which is the most easiest way of production, industrial production. So and then we have different plan to do the thermal characterization and mechanical testing and all those things, flow stress characterization. So these were the proposals. Vanitec was requested to provide nitrovan, which will eventually we have got. And then these are the typical schedules, as I said, rolling and natural cooling. We have the year-wise plan. And finally, in the rolling mill, pipe scale rolling mill of Steel Authority of India Limited, these were prepared, rolled to do different thicknesses. And then we have studied for microstructure and properties. I am just closing the presentation and quickly clicking over some slides, because continuously we have whatever we have presented in the single presentation, we have accumulated all the slides so that a continuity remains. These are our earlier presentation. One area we have worked is 10 size variation. So in the last presentation, we have showed that we have worked on large number of grades and studied the austenite grain size variation, a kind of a problem on which I was working on since my PhD last about 2 decades. So we found that compared to niobium, vanadium has a much better grain size control. The grain size variation is much less in vanadium microalloyed steel compared to niobium microalloyed steel, which is expected to be very beneficial for impact toughness, because these grain size variation, particularly the coarse grains, are harmful for impact toughness. This kind of grain size variation can be there in niobium steels. With this background, finally in the last presentation in one of the grades, we have met E350 grade requirement, the required properties of that grade. With this, I come to this presentation for the March 2023. So I am quickly going through the whatever things we have achieved. So previously we have made 3 grades. You may remember out of that 2 grades we were not happy with those because we could not control aluminium. So aluminium nitride was forming instead of vanadium nitride, and vanadium was in solution. We were getting benetic microstructure. So these kind of problems happen. In the 3rd grade, we managed to control aluminium. So we got good properties, E350 properties. Subsequently, we have melted 4 compositions. We had a little bit of issue with carbon content. because the furnace in the RDCIS was newly lined, refractory line. So I come to know that there was a little bit of overheating or burning issue, which was possibly resulting in a little carbon at the lower side. Typically, we are looking for carbon 14014 or something like that, 012. But lower carbon, if we can achieve property, this is even better because the toughness and weldability is expected to be better. Vanadium, you see, get high nitrogen, vanadium is varying 017, 044, 050 in the final grade 092. Nitrogen, this time we are using, these grades we are using nitrovan received from Vanitec. So these are the nitrogen level achieved with the nitrovan received from Vanitec. So thanks to Vanitec for the same. And for each composition, two roll plate, 12 mm and 25 mm, we have coded like low vanadium, LV, where vanadium is less than 0.3, like that. Medium vanadium 0.3 to 0.6, high vanadium greater than 0.6. Likewise, low nitrogen less than 100 ppm, high nitrogen like that. We have done the thermocalc prediction of precipitation, at what temperature the precipitates are forming, vanadium precipitates, what is going to be the fraction of those precipitates. So all the thermodynamic and kinetic calculations have been done initially. And you see here that for all these tasks that we are working on, what are the precipitation temperatures, precipitation start temperature and transformation start temperature, AE1, AE3 during cooling, MS, all are reported in a single slide. We have done JMAT Pro calculation for kinetic prediction. We have done dilatometric study. These are the dilation curve for all the steel. So far, whatever we have made, we have performed dilation study. We know the actual transformation start temperature for ferrite, benite, and all those things. Martensite for different cooling rate. We have varied cooling rate from 1 to 50 degrees centigrade per second in our dilatometry study. This is the summary of all the dilatometric study of the vanadium grades that we have prepared. Typically, we are getting ferrite perlite microstructure in the later on whatever steels we have made. Initially, you may remember vanadium was there in solution, so we had vanitic microstructure. Hardenability was quite high. These steels are hardenability was manageable. So typically we get ferrite perlite microstructures. We have compared what we are getting from dilatometry and what we have predicted. These are the typical microstructure, nice uniform grain structure. Grain size may not be very fine, but in the reasonable range. In 12 mm plate, 8 to 10 micrometer. In 25 mm plate, grain size is little coarser, 16 to 11, but the grain size distribution is very good, and you can see perfectly unimodal kind of distribution. SEM, ferrite perlite, we can see ferrite perlite type of classical microstructures. We have done some ACM studies where we picked up cuboidal vanadium carbonitride, small amount of. Our TEM study is pending. Unfortunately, it is taking some time. I am not able to present the TEM results this time, but I hope that by the end of the month of May, TEM results will be available with us. We have done EBSD study. Again, you can see nice uniform grain structure and very random kind of texture, not very strong texture. So this is expected to give good toughness property in plate steel. Not very strong. So this is what ODF representation, orientation distribution function. Tensile properties. So tensile curve also, RDTD not very different. So anisotropy is also not very high. 12 mm RD, 12 mm TD, 25 mm RD, 25 mm TD. So in some of the grades, we have got little bit of anisotropy in ductility that we have to study. But still, in high strength grades, still our ductility is relatively very good. In general, more than 30% ductility total elongation we are getting. We have plotted strain hardening behavior also. So these are all the properties listed. In these 4 grades, you see, in the last 2 grades, our strength level is very high. Strength level is meeting 450 requirement. Elongation is quite good. So you can see the typical results of the tensile properties listed here. We are seeing typically with increasing vanadium content, as expected, strength, YES, UTS goes up, a little bit of negative effect on elongation. Similarly, nitrogen. So we have found more or less similar effect with the data point that we have from this project data. YS UTS level also we have found slightly going up with the vanadium and nitrogen content. Charpy impact energy, all these blue lines, blue colored regions are showing where we are meeting the properties. We are targeting 27 Joule down to -20. So 0 degree also there is requirement of 27 Joule, -20 also. So in all the new grades we are meeting satisfactorily the 27 Joule toughness. Only in 25 plate, -20°C, we are falling a little short, but our grades that we are preparing are open induction melting. So we expect in controlled industrial melting, industrial rolling, the microstructure will be more refined, and this value is not very less than 27 Joule. So our expectation is in industrial scale, these values will be very well met to whatever is the requirement. You can see the transitions -20, more or less these are meeting the minimum requirement, barring this high vanadium, high nitrogen one, where we are getting the maximum strength level. So here we are plotting YS versus impact energy. This yellow color is showing 410 grade requirement and green color showing 450 grade requirement. And these are the toughness requirement for these grades. So we find this pink color and green colors are meeting. So these two are meeting from strength, toughness point of view. These two are meeting the 450 requirement. Similarly, strength, elongation, again for 410, 450 required elongation. So here several grades are meeting, 3 grades are meeting the requirement, pink, black as well as green. So earlier, one of the earlier composition. So likewise, we have tried to find. In general, we are still analyzing the data, whatever we have received so far from this project. We find with increase in carbon, strength increases, but the effect of carbon is more on UTS. Comparatively, the negative effect of carbon is more on elongation, the elongation. Vanadium, strength, it's more or less similar effect. It increases YS and UTS both in the same way. It's showing a little bit of detrimental effect more on elongation. Nitrogen, it has stronger effect on yield strength based on the data readings, whatever we have produced under this project, and same kind of a slight negative effect on these two. But the great thing is, with such a low carbon level, we have met such a high property requirement. So we expect, I'm quickly going through this slide. These are the fractographs. Under the notch root, we see ductile fracture. Sometime at -20 at the depth, we are finding some cleavage fracture. So all these slides we have shared. And so we have really found the beneficial effect of vanadium and nitrogen addition. Even if 100 ppm nitrogen, we found that it is giving good property, increases YS and UTS at the expense of some loss in ductility and impact toughness. From the earlier composition, this steel met 350. Our new steels not only met 350, but some of those met 410 requirement, and 12 thick plate of the final high nitrogen grade met 450 requirement. We have recently placed a work order to RDCIS for Glibble testing because we would like to study the flow curve compared to niobium grade, how the flow curves of these vanadium steels are. We plan to have one more melt with vanadium with a little higher carbon, 0.1415, because we expect to see even more strength in that. And our request is, it may not be possible for me to travel all the time abroad. We have other restrictions and requirements and visa requirements and all those things. So if the Vanitech representative, Dr. Dave and others, if you feel, you can please present this work, because we want the work to be advertised in different conferences. So you also can have our presentation and present. And we would request one final installment. We have not taken the last year, the next installment. We got only one installment. So if you can kindly give one more installment, final one, so that we can nicely wrap up this study. So this is our group. Aniket is doing PhD on this project from RDCIS SAIT. He is a manager and engineer from RDCIS SAIT. Amir is helping a lot. He is a PhD student. Rakesh is also contributing significantly. And Senthil has done the dilatometry study. So more or less my entire team is working on this work. And I thank Dr. Dave, Dr. Lee, Dr. Hilbert, and others from Vanitech, and Mr. Andrew, and Mr. Teddy, and Mr. Rajesh for providing the Nitrovan to us. So this is all. Thank you from RTCIS SAIL and IIT Kharagpur. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Debole. We're making some good progress there. I think we've got time for a couple of questions or a couple of comments. Does anyone have any questions for Debole?
Yeah, again, it's me, Vishwanathan. I have a quick question, very quick one. Debole, what product was this? Was this a plate or it was a plate? And did you show the grain sizes by the way?
No, it's not plate. The product is, we are targeting two products. One is structural sections. Okay. Final sections as well as plates. Okay. So structural section, since it is difficult to manufacture section in pilot scale, so we are working on plates, but it will be applicable to plate as well as sections. Grain size in the new grades that we have made, grain size is in the range of 8 to 10 micrometer. Okay. In 12 mm thick plate. And for 25 mm thick plate, it's from 10 to 12 micrometer. A little bit of higher because of less reduction. But the grain size distribution is quite uniform, as I have shown.
Right. Thank you.
Hi, Debole. Just another question from me, really, point of clarification. You showed some Sharpie results earlier.
Yes.
And you were just about getting -20. But I think on the diagram you showed, you were using a transverse Sharpie test piece. The orientation...
Yes. You are right.
And the transverse test piece usually has a slightly lower toughness than a longitudinal test piece.
Yes, you are absolutely right. That's why we are doing, because it's a more conservative representation of toughness.
Yeah,
you are right.
I'm just saying that most standards, some standards ask for transverse, but a lot of standards just ask for longitudinal Sharpies.
Okay.
So I guess if you can just about make -20 on transverse, you're going to be okay on longitudinal. The other thing was your sulfur contents are about 0.02 or 0.025.
Yes, that's true.
I mean, we could probably in industry work with slightly lower sulfur contents and drive the Sharpie toughness up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think one of the endpoints of the project was to get SAIL to produce a trial from this. Is that still the plan?
Yes. So I am looking for. Let me close the stop share. So is there anyone? Yes, actually they are working on the development of steel from in the SAIL. So I expected Dr. Kumar to be here. If they join, I have shared the link with them. If they joined, I will update you on this. Okay. They are adding vanadium. Last time also I have shown that they Aniket. So
good evening, sir.
Good evening. Can you make any comment?
Based on these studies, sir, we have already started having vanadium addition in E250, 350, and 410 grades. So 250 it was not required because we were meeting the properties already. But in E350 and 450, we have started 0.04 vanadium addition. And recently, sir, we got some plates also from there which have met the E410C properties with a very minor 0.04 vanadium additions. We have actually started the plant trials.
Okay, right. Thanks very much. That's very encouraging. I'm glad to hear that. Okay.
So Aniket, if you feel, you can share some information also that what kind of vanadium grades you are making.
So we are adding 0.04 vanadium in 0.18 steels, and we are generally rolling it to 18 and 25 mm thickness right now. And we are comfortably meeting the properties. Initially, some trials did fail, but now all the trials which we have done recently in 4 or 5 weeks, they have met the properties comfortably. I have some data I will share with you, sir, which you can share further.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.